would you restructure if we could talk about mass torts phase 2, right? You're going to have a lot of the firms that have been running the game probably out in the next 5-10 years, and people like you will very much be the go-to people that everybody wants to hear how you want the space to be of service to our society. So how would you restructure mass torts if you could answer that?
I think that a couple of big picture things. I mean, the first one is a lot of the organizations and sort of institutions that have developed around MDLs and mass torts are completely controlled and dominated by the defense bar. They just are. I go to these conferences every once in a while, these judge conferences, and it's me and 3 of the same other plaintiffs lawyers and 20 defense lawyers. We all know them, and all these federal judges chatting casually, drinking, getting to know each other, and having conversations that really affect the woof and warp of our practice. And, bifurcation, general causation. If we look at what's going on right now in mass torts from a litigation perspective, is federal courts are being asked to more and more micromanage and influence every little aspect of a case. I mean, a good example is I just got a deposition protocol from the defense counsel in Zantac and then JCP that they want to institute. It was 30 pages long, basically like rewriting and having the court be involved in dictating how we take depositions, which is something that we've been doing for hundreds of years. Bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. And this tendency to busy work ourselves and create these things that become so important and, we don't try a case for 5 years is a real problem. I think from a sort of self-organizational perspective, I think there's going to be a real come to Jesus, because what's happening right now is a lot of firms, and I'm not going to say who, but a lot of firms aren't doing the work and just holding on to large numbers of cases and trying to get them plugged into settlements, whatever they can get at some point. And
right.
We really saw this in Roundup, right? My clients, we settled their cases and they got, the best deal in the country, understandably so, but they got the best deal in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these thousands of other people who are with other firms who got, 10 cents on the dollar that we got our clients. And the only difference is that person called that number instead of my number, right? They just called the wrong phone number. If they had called this number, they would have gotten 10 times as much money. And I think there's a real problem with that. And it's a function of what we call inventory settlements, right? It's a function of the defense bar now is saying, listen, there's too many cases out there to settle globally, or we don't want to, or we're not willing to do so. We're going to take out the Brents, the Laniers, the whoever's, and take out their cases, get them out of the litigation, and then, leverage the fact that the people who haven't either done the work, haven't had an opportunity to do the work, right? Haven't been given a chance to. A lot of these people want to do it. They just aren't allowed to, right? They're not involved in leadership. And so they're just sitting by the sidelines. It's not like they don't want to do it, but they can't, right? Because they're not allowed to. And then suddenly all the leadership settles and they're like, well, okay, can I get the stuff? No, it becomes this problem. I think long-term, I think 2 things need to happen. I think inventory settlements need to stop. Obviously, this is hurting my bottom line, right? Inventory settlements help my firm. We always settle higher than other people because we can try the case and we're usually heavily involved, right? But I think there needs to be a return to the global settlement model. And I think these people who are getting cases and warehousing them have to understand that they're going to surrender a chunk of their fee to the people who got them settled globally, right? There has to be that exchange, because the reason why inventory settlements are happening is because we've done all this work, we've taken all this risk, whatever, we should get our pay. And the way we get paid is by our clients getting paid more, right? But in the global context, if the whole thing is getting settled, right? That I think there really needs to be an understanding that people are going to not get the same percentage of the fee that I'm getting from my clients because they didn't do the work. They didn't put up the money. They didn't do that project. They didn't take that risk. I think that is going to have to shift. And we're going to either see the reemergence of global settlements with the imposition of probably uncomfortably high levels of common benefit assessments, or we're going to see a lot of these warehousing firms go belly up and not be able to get their cases settled. And there's going to be a sort of cascade, particularly with all the Wall Street money that's now in the market.
That was going to be my segue, right? Because I think we're in the precipice of something big happening on the money side, where you have all these capital sources waiting. I mean, there's been, as you know, a ton of money put into mass torts from Wall Street as it is on the debt deal side. Now you're going to have these equity deals that are already happening, especially with Arizona changing the laws. What do you think is going to happen? Because I can see all kinds of mass tort firms going into these equity deals and having access to unlimited capital and building out their infrastructures, and their inventories are going to be bigger than ever. But if there is no change in the leadership, like you were talking about, in the politics side of it, like, what does that even mean? Does that mean that we're really just getting more cases and there is volume, but there is less quality? Is it?
And here's the other problem, right? I think litigation funding and equity deals can serve a really valuable purpose, right? It can give people access to justice they otherwise wouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of good parts about it, but it's also big money. There's going to be a reaction on a legislative level to this, right? We have a proposition in California that's being put on the ballot as we speak to cap attorney's fees at 20%. Now, I mean, that would devastate the mass tort industry. It would devastate most PI firms, right, in California. We probably have to leave California, and all these poor Californians are not going to get access to justice because of it. It's going to be really terrible. But that's a reaction, right, to this perception of big money mass tort lawyers making all this flying around in their 100-person jets, and this guy, oh yeah, I got $100 million in capital and whatever. And I'll be honest, I don't fully understand who's betting on some of these lawyers. Some of them I totally get. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd fund you too if I could. Right. But I mean, but some people, I'm like, they gave you $100 million. You've never taken a deposition in your life. Are they high? And there's going to be a reckoning there, right? And when those lawsuits happen, and when those things break apart, and all the dirty underbelly of that stuff starts getting exposed, there's going to be federal legislative action, and lawyers who are trying to help people who aren't doing this weird seedy shit are going to pay the penalty, and ultimately the clients will. I think there needs to be some serious self-policing, which is an impossible thing to do when you're talking about an endless pot of money, right? Mm-hmm. So the truth of it is, I think we're the way things are going, we are on our road to a disastrous ultimate conclusion. And I think that it's going to be bad for the industry and bad for people. There's a way to avoid this, right? And a lot of it's going to involve maybe taking some preemptive policing efforts to how we're going to regulate ourselves and dictate these things. But if we don't, the defense bar is going to seize on it. They are going to they're going to ostracize us. We're going to lose the goodwill of many courts, of the general population. And next thing you know, we're going to have these crazy laws being passed that are meant to correct this problem, correct the Girardis of the world, right? When really it behooves us to do it internally. So I mean, that's a vague response to a very important question.